Hi, everyone. Ted Wyman here with another playoff edition of Jet Setting. I'm joined today by Scott Billeck. We've both been covering the Winnipeg Jets series against the Vegas Golden Knights. It's now through two games, and the Golden Knights bounced back big time with a 5-2 win in game two. The Winnipeg Jets played really, really well, Scott, I thought, for four periods of this series. They
Yeah,
won game one. They absolutely controlled the first period of game two, and then it all kind of fell apart from there. What went wrong?
yeah. They start, they stopped playing Winnipeg Jets hockey in the second, and especially I thought in the third period because you're still tied 2-2 in that third period on Thursday night, but it felt like the Jets had already kind of transitioned into a game where they were trying to chase it more than they were trying to, kind of lock it down, play smart hockey, and that sort of thing. They got away from what they did best in those first four periods that you alluded to. They stopped being as aggressive. They weren't disrupting nearly as many breakouts and transitions and all that kind of stuff from Vegas that they did so well in the first game. And at the end of the day, they didn't do enough to win. They didn't score on their chances. I mean, they had a lot of chances in that period, especially in the first period. They had the 4-on-3, they couldn't score. Those things kind of take the wind out of their sails. And then, when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, Vegas's top players are better than Winnipeg's top players. And arguably, Connor Hellebuyck got outdueled by Laurent Brossoit. And so now you have a series, which I think at the end of the day, if you looked at this series coming into it, you've been like, okay, if the Jets split 1-1 in Vegas, that's an ideal situation for the Jets. But I think there's a lot of people now, based on how they played in game one and how they started off game two, that thought this Jets team could have come home, rather easily with a 2-0 lead. That's obviously not the case, and we'll see how it goes come Saturday.
Well, it's a best of five now, and the Jets have home ice advantage, and that's the truth of that. Even though they did lose, in not great fashion in game two, but I thought where that game really turned, Scott, was when Mark Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Neil Pionk, Brendan Dillon all got caught out on the ice on a very long shift. They
Yeah,
just couldn't get the puck out of the zone. It was bouncing around. Nobody seemed to be able to get a good stick on it, and eventually William Karlsson got it and put the puck in the net. I described in my notes column as I was watching the game that that's when the chaos began. It seemed like right up until that point, the Jets were keeping things simple. They were playing a good road game. They were doing things right, and it was really frustrating the Vegas Golden Knights. And then it all just kind of turned into
yeah.
this odd, chaotic situation from there on. And the shots going down the stretch after that was, I mean, 30-8 or something like that for Vegas. And it wasn't close, even though the Jets were tied going into the third period.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting listening to Pierre-Luc Dubois and what he said this morning. It can kind of it disrupts everything else, right? When you take a 2-minute shift, it means somebody else's ice time is not going, so they're sitting for longer. Their legs are getting, stiff, and then it's just you're not in that flow of play anymore. All right, and last night's game or Tuesday or Thursday night's game, because there were seven penalties and a lot of them were coming, the pace of the game was already getting kind of bogged down a little bit. And then you got guys that are sitting for longer because you're taking, a 2-minute shift. And that whole line did it. Cal Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Mark Scheifele all out there for 157 each. And then on defense, Neil Pionk and Brendan Dillon were on the ice for 132 apiece. So yeah, that's a mistake, and it cost them with William Karlsson scoring the goal there because they're just tired, right? I mean, you can only expect so much when Vegas has changed and they got a fresh set of legs out there. Oftentimes, it's either a penalty; those things end up in a penalty or a goal, and it ended up in a goal last night, and a costly one because it got Vegas back into the game and it breathed life into what they're doing. And then they scored; they made it 2-1, and obviously it was a nice, goal by Kevin Stenlund. But you're right. I mean, I think it felt like the Jets were now on the back foot kind of after that, just because some of that disruption.
It was just like one off the rush goal for the Jets, really. It wasn't like
Right.
anything to do
Yeah.
with any sustained pressure or anything like that. So
No,
it
one guy
didn't
blew
really
a
give me
tire,
a
right?
feeling.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Braden McNabb blew a tire, and so
yeah.
it made it easy. And full credit to Kevin Stenlund because he makes a really nice play there. to poke it in and get that deflection. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know if that even becomes anything if Braden McNabb doesn't fall over and then, kind of trip himself skating backwards.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, we're awfully hard sometimes on Mark Scheifele. He coming into the series, a lot of us asked the question, will you get the Mark Scheifele who was great, at least at putting the puck in the net for the first half of the season this year, who was the best player in the 2018 playoffs for the Jets? Or will you get the guy who just seemed lost out there for at least 15 games while the Jets were in their funk late in the season? And really, you got the latter this time. Scheifele really did not have a good game. He was certainly on the ice for 3 goals against. He did have a chance to get that puck out before the Carlson goal. He lost the faceoff to Chandler Stevenson on the game-winning goal, and then didn't really pick him up quickly enough.
Yeah.
Stevenson gets in and gets a rebound and scores. Scheifele is kind of a whipping boy sometimes around Winnipeg because of things like that, but he's his own worst enemy as well, because it's pretty obvious from watching that, and you hear it right away. Rick Bowness doesn't sugarcoat it. He says that play just can't happen. It's kind of obvious that Scheifele, when he's not going well, can be a liability.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was, listening to an argument last night. Well, Connor Hellebuck can't give up that rebound on the shot. It's a wrist shot from the point. That's a rebound that needs to, be dealt with differently. Whether you catch it, whether you knock it, into the opposite corner instead of the middle of the ice. I mean, you can make that argument for sure. One of the things that I have listened to over the past is, a guy named Kevin Woodley is a kind of the hockey goalie guru. The NHL uses him and talks to him a lot of time. And you listen about how guys' pads now, goalie pads are, they almost accelerate the puck off of the padding when it hits it and that sort of thing. And I also, when I look back at that, the shot it was in a weird handcuffing kind of area where it's difficult to catch it. And Hellebuck, Connor Hellebuck didn't catch it. And so that, you can blame it on Connor Hellebuck for the rebound, but at the same time, like, if you look at that Mark Scheifele play, you want to tie up your guy in front. I mean, that's just kind of simple hockey. And so, yeah, maybe Connor Hellebuck makes a mistake on the rebound, but then that second wave of defense, right? That second, line of defense needs to be there where you're tying up that stick. And Mark Scheifele was too far away to really do anything. And so, you can place the blame at whoever's feet you want, but at the end of the day, that goal probably it doesn't happen if there's better coverage and better gap control and that sort of thing on him. So, yeah, Mark Scheifele's been a whipping boy. I understand. He also wants to be the best player on the ice, and so when he's not, I think it stands out more than other guys. I mean, he's a top line right winger at the moment right now, but he is very he's a catalyst for offense on this team, and he's a crucial player for this team if they're going to win hockey games. And so, yeah, his moments, his errors, his successes, they're all kind of more illuminated when they happen, just because of the player that he is and the role that he plays on this team.
Yeah, well, those are really good points. Well, the good news for the Jets is they come home and they are going to play in their own arena. In games 3 and 4, there's going to be a whiteout. There's going to be a whiteout inside. There's a whiteout outside,
Yeah.
as we know.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting having the fans downtown. Not a particularly warm day expected. Lots of snow around the area in the last couple of days. Obviously, it's shouldn't be that way in late April, but I do believe people like to see whiteouts when it comes to this time of year. And what kind of an effect do you think that crowd can have? Because the Vegas crowd really was pretty electric in those first 2 games, especially last night. And Winnipeg's crowd usually can rival any in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I look back to the 2018 playoffs against Nashville and the game where the Jets were down. I believe it was 2 or 3-0. I forget the game now. It was
3-0.
Yeah, that was game 3, I believe. I want to say. And especially after the Trouba goal, the Jacob Trouba goal, and that place, like the roof, like that's the loudest that building has ever been, in my opinion. And it was really loud in 2014-15 when the Jets first went to the playoffs against Anaheim. But it's an interesting it's an interesting place to be because it is so it's electric, and I think that it has a huge effect because I think it's going to have a bigger effect on the guys on this team that have never really experienced it before, because 2021 when they beat Edmonton and lost to Montreal in the playoffs, that was all empty buildings, right? Because of COVID. Last year they missed the playoffs. So guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois or Brendan Dillon or the guys like that, they've never played even I guess Neil Pionk and a bunch of these guys, because the COVID year and the bubble and all that, they never got a chance to play the playoffs in front of fans that year either. I think you're going to see a lot of people. A lot of these players are like almost in awe of what that whiteout can be like. It is something to behold. I mean, it doesn't have this reputation for no reason. It's raucous. It's everything, right? And so, yeah, I think it can have a huge effect, and especially on the highs in the game, right? I mean, scoring goals, killing off penalties, big saves. Like there's a lot of energy to feed off of from those things within the game, that can really kind of spurn a team on. We've heard all the players talk about it before. It's a nasty environment to play in if you're the visitors, and there couldn't be a better environment to play in if you're the home team. And the Jets will be the home team for the next 2 games.
Well, that's also great observations. I think the Jets are going to be pretty happy with the scoring they've gotten from their bottom 6, with Adam Lowry having 3 goals already.
Yeah.
Stenlund gets 1. The top 6 needs to pick it up a little bit in game 3, although they were very good in game 1. I think all in all, the Jets have to be pretty happy with their situation coming home, and it will be very interesting to watch what happens in games 3 and 4 at Canada Life Center. Scott, you and I will be there, and we'll keep bringing you more Jet Setting as the playoffs go on. For Scott Billeck, I'm Ted Wyman. You've been watching Jet Setting on winnipegsun.com.